Today, we're going to talk a lot about leadership because this is the program that cultivates leaders. And we have a lot of amazing examples of this. But it's very important to be able to learn from the leaders who have been able to accomplish what some would have thought is impossible. And so today we welcome a very, very special guest, a very, very special speaker. And I'm going to let Mr. Anthony introduce her.
Good morning, scholars, parents, and guests. I am thrilled to welcome our keynote speaker, who's going to be extending greetings to us for our opening ceremony here today, and also just the opening of our TeenSHARP year. So at TeenSHARP, we imagine a world where leadership of our country, every part of our country, looks like people in our country. So in plain words, we see leadership that looks like you. And so because we know diversity and leadership is not just the morally right thing to do, it is a must thing to do, given the complexity of challenges that we are facing today and will face tomorrow. And also the urgent need for solutions that follow a different leadership paradigm. Today, we have an honor, truly an honor, to speak to a one-of-a-kind leader, the one who is a unicorn nowadays in more ways in healthcare industry and beyond, and the one who leads differently, and the one who makes the impossible possible. And that is my friend, a person I look up to, Dr. Eli Stanford. I met Dr. Eli Stanford years ago before the world knew Dr. Eli Stanford at Salem Baptist Church in Jenkintown. And even then, during our medical expertise, had extensive medical expertise for many, many years. And at our church, she would always be one of the first people to say, how can we get our men tested for different things that they need to get checked on, women checked. She was always making sure she was there looking at the health concerns of our senior population and also just the rest of the population of our church. She's never been the one to not try to help a young person who's trying to go into the medical field. And she's always been willing to share advice and support. Service has been her biggest thing in life, right? She's a medical doctor, but giving back and but her work is beyond just beyond just being in the room as a physician. She wants to extend the work outside of the hospital, outside of the doctor's office. And she's been doing that very well for many, many years. So we are thrilled to have Dr. Eli Stanford. I know Ms. Jenny Jordan wanted to show a quick clip before she speaks, but the next voice you will hear is Dr. Eli Stanford.
Where I was born, there's crime, poor living conditions, no grocery stores, and that grit that comes from being a poor kid raised in Philadelphia is what has given me the tenacity to press on no matter what, but also allows me to identify with the people I serve every day. What's up, y'all? Good morning. The vaccine is here. Beautiful. I knew I wanted to be a doctor from the time I was about 8 years old, and I never believed I couldn't do it. With my sheet on my shoulders and my extension cord as my stethoscope, I'd stand in the mirror and say, "Hi, my name is Dr. Stanford. How are you today?" So was this your first or second? Okay. I am a pediatric surgeon, and for the last 14 months, founder of the Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium. We were intentional about getting Black and brown communities the access and care they needed, focusing on communities that have the highest positivity rates.
I'm done. You're great.
Those who are most vulnerable, they need to have the support.
These are extraordinary times. A national emergency. America is shutting down, and there is real panic.
The first few weeks after the pandemic started, my husband and I, my kids, it was kind of fun to just be together. What changed for me was African Americans were dying at a rate greater than any other group in Philadelphia. This was your working class community. They were keeping the city and the country running, but wherever Black people were, the one thing that was tough to come by was testing. When they got off work, everything was closed. If you lived in an affluent white neighborhood, you were 6 times more likely to have testing. So I jumped in. Frustrating day on the phone with city officials, state officials, hospital folks, trying to get the testing we need in our communities. I am trying, it ain't easy. After having lots of conversation with no clear, concrete action plan, I decided I was the action plan. The Black Doctors COVID-19 Consortium will be testing patients in inner city Philadelphia that are hardest hit from the coronavirus. I got all the PPE from my office. I got testing kits. My mom rented a van, and that was it. And the first day, we did a dozen tests. The second time we went out, we did about 150 tests. And the third time, there were 500 people lined up before we started. But we had to earn the trust of the people.
She's a good sister.
I'm gonna put my hand on your shoulder, okay, ready? But the positivity rate was 1 in 4. There was no end in sight. Good morning, we're at Deliverance Evangelistic Church. Our partnerships were with churches because the church, it was a trusted place. We are at Esperanza, which means hope. We went to community centers, mosques, street corners. Then December, I got.
Please help me welcome Dr. Ayla Stanford.
Hi. Good morning, everybody. I was just trying to get this tweet together so I could say thank you, TeenSHARP, for, let's see, preparing the next generation of leaders. Send. All right. Good morning. It is so wonderful to see you. I keep scrolling through the pages and there's more and more of you. Yes, I did go to Penn State undergrad and medical school. I saw that pop up in the chat, and I have been given my instructions by Mr. Phillips that talking about preparing you for top colleges, family, advice for scholars, why I chose a career in service, and just to tell you a little bit about myself. And I have 15 minutes, sir.
Yes, yes, you
Okay.
do. Whatever you need.
I'm a rule follower. So that is point number 1. When people give you instructions, you follow the instructions that are provided. So they invite you back and know that you listen. So as you heard from that CNN, and it's hard for me to watch that every time, I am born and raised in Philadelphia, from North Philly. My parents were young. We were on public assistance. I was educated in the public school system. I went to Lingelbach. I went to John B. Kelly. I went to Fitler Academics Plus School. I finished in New Jersey. And ultimately, I went to Penn State because that was the school that gave me the most aid, being a Pennsylvania resident. And I didn't want to have a lot of debt and so forth. So I went to Penn State. I studied a lot. My friends went to parties a lot, and I was known for being on College Avenue Saturday morning studying for my MCAT examination, preparing for medical school. And I pledged a sorority, Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, which I love dearly. But my sorority sister, who I'm still very close with all of them, but my roommate, she would go to step practice and then she would teach me the steps later in our room because I could never make practice because I was studying. Ultimately, the MCAT test, so Stanley Kaplan, the Princeton Review, all those courses that are out there are beneficial. I can tell you for myself, I was not a good standardized test taker, so I needed those courses to teach me how to take a test. So you can be brilliant in school And usually that translates over to standardized test taking, but not for everyone. So I knew I needed that. I celebrate Christmas and Kwanzaa. I remember coming home one year, and it must have been the 80s. Yeah. And saying to my family that I want to take this Kaplan class, but it was over $1,000. And someone in the room just started passing a hat around. And in that hat, people put $5, they put $10. Some people put checks, some people put coins. And with that money, I was able to go back to State College and enroll in the Stanley Kaplan class and take my MCATs and get a respectable score that I was accepted into medical school. The first medical school I was accepted into was Thomas Jefferson, but I recognized at the time their classroom size was about 250 students, which I thought was a lot for me. Like, I preferred a smaller classroom. So when I was accepted to Penn State, I chose that because it was more like 115 students and I preferred the smaller class. I should also mention that when I was accepted to college, I was accepted to Rutgers and Penn State. And I went to Penn State Erie, which is a branch campus, which is now a 4-year college. But I spent my first 2 years at Penn State Erie and my second 2 years as on what they call the main campus or State College. And I mention that to you guys because sometimes you can start, at a smaller school until you get your feet wet. I mean, Penn State is like hundreds of thousands of students, but the point was in the beginning, coming out of high school, that smaller setting was better for me. And then I transferred to the main campus at University Park, and that was great. And then in medical school, was it hard? Yes, it was hard, but I couldn't see myself doing anything else but becoming a doctor. So I don't feel like I was deterred much. I sometimes did not do well on tests. I sometimes had to take tests over, but obviously I graduated. In fact, this year is 25 years of being a doctor. So this is my 25-year, medical school reunion. In fact, it's next weekend. And it just went by. I won't even say fast because I enjoyed every moment. Medical school, I think I had one Black teacher in 4 years. There were not many students of color. We really relied on each other. I feel like in some ways we were at a disadvantage because I knew one doctor growing up and we weren't surrounded by some of the vocabulary, some of the nuances of medicine. And so it took some time to catch up. And I think now the medical schools are becoming more nurturing to recognizing that it's not just about the grades, it's also an environment that needs to be cultivated for some of our students. And so that's important. So I can tell you that when I graduated from medical school, and this again brings in the family, all those folks who had put in $5 and $10 for me to take the MCAT testing class, you may, for those of you who live in Philly, at Cheltenham and Washington Lane, there's it was Cheltenham Square Mall back in the day. Now it's kind of a plaza. My father rented a Greyhound bus and he had it there on Sunday morning. And all of my family from North Philly and West Philly and Germantown and wherever, they all parked their cars or they got a bus to that parking lot. And they all loaded the bus up to Hershey when I graduated. And when I graduated, oh my gosh, I can't even tell this. When I graduated, it was like everyone in the neighborhood was also graduating that day because they knew that they had produced a doctor. They knew that they had contributed to my success. And I felt all of them. And you know how they're always like, hold your applause to the end. So of course, when I walked across the stage, there were like 50 people because they had all come up on the bus. And so many people, you know, in Philly, everybody takes public transportation. You take the subway, you take the train. People don't have cars. Some people never even learn how to drive. But my dad wanted to make sure that they had a way to share in that experience. And so the bus was there. He told you what time the bus was leaving, and everyone was in the bus, and they were all there. And it was such a special, I think that in addition to maybe my children being born are probably like the happiest days of my life, because they were so, I mean, it was just a really, really special moment. And my great grandma, my grandfather, some godparents, people who are no longer with me, I can look back at those pictures and see them, and that means so much. So fast forward, I graduate from medical school, and I knew I wanted to go and help folks in Philly. Like I wanted to come back and help my community. But like many of you, maybe when people tell you you should do something, you usually do what? The opposite, right? I don't want someone telling me what I should do. And everyone was like, you need to go into primary care. It's your job to save all the Black people in the world. And I was like, well, what if I don't want to do that? This is me thinking that. Is that my responsibility? Do I have to do that? So I recoiled because I didn't want to do primary care, which is like pediatrics, family practice, things like that. I wanted to be a surgeon. I wanted to use my mind and my hands, and I wanted to save people by cutting things out and sewing things back up, right? And so I chose surgery, and then I loved children. And so I chose pediatric surgery. And you guys can ask me questions about how long that took, but I became a pediatric surgeon. And as soon as I was done, I should mention, I was at State University of New York in Brooklyn for my training, and then University of Pittsburgh. So I came right back to Pennsylvania. And then I went to Cincinnati Children's for pediatric surgery. And then my first job was back in Philly at Temple Children's, Abington. I worked at CHOP, I worked at St. Chris, and all of that good stuff. And I loved it. So I still got to come home, but take care of folks the way I wanted to, which was as a surgeon. So I worked in the hospital. And then as my kids got older, I decided I needed to work for myself so I could have more freedom. So then for folks who are entrepreneur or own their own business or own their own practice, you have more freedom, but in the beginning, you usually make no money. So you have to plan really hard when you work for yourself. So when COVID happened, now almost 3 years ago, because I'm from Philly, you guys heard all that, my phone was blowing up. Ayla, I think I have this COVID, but every time I go to the ER, they send me home. Every time I call my doctor, they say, just stay home and shelter in place. But they were sick. And so I would get on the phone and I would say, you just turned away Mr. Johnson. He meets criteria. You need to test him right away. And they would say, I'm so sorry, Dr. Stanford. We'll get on it right away. And every person that I did that for was positive for COVID, every single one. And all of them were people of color. So on the news, you're hearing, well, because Black folks are not as healthy, because they have more health conditions and so forth, that's why they're more likely to get sick and die from COVID. And I was like, wait a minute, that might be part of the story, but reason 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 are access, because they're going and you're turning them away. And so I said, I work for myself. I don't need to ask for permission. So I'm going to take my tests and my kits that I can get like everyone else, and I'm going to go where Black and Latino and poor white folks and whoever go to get their care. So we went to church, we went to community centers, we went to street corners, we went to Belmont Plateau, we went to homeless shelters, we went everywhere to give people the care they needed. And folks were like, well, how are you going to pay for it? And I said, well, I'm a doctor in good standing. You're going to bill me and I'm going to figure it out later. And sure enough, funding came later. But think about all the times or how many lives would have been lost if I was waiting for someone to come and give me the money to do it. So then we did that. Then the vaccine came out and folks were like, well, Black people don't want to get vaccinated. And I said, don't be so quick about that. It matters who is giving the vaccine. It matters where they're getting the vaccine. And it matters if they trust the person. And so I had to fight with the city of Philadelphia to say, give me vaccine. And if you give it to me, people will come. And they didn't want to give it to me because back then there was such a small amount. And they said, we don't want to give it to you when there are other people who may really want it. And I said, just give me the first batch. We vaccinated Martin Luther King Day weekend on that Saturday before Monday, the holiday. They gave us 500 doses. They were all gone. We vaccinated on Sunday. They were all gone. People were wrapped around the building to get us to vaccinate them. And so this narrative, and it's why you have to be careful when people say, people don't want it, they don't trust. Well, here it is. The healthcare system has been untrustworthy to African Americans, to Latinos, treating them not with the respect, not with the cultural humility that is necessary to get the best health outcomes. That's different than saying they don't trust, because then that puts the responsibility on the individual to say, well, if you don't trust, that's not my fault. As opposed to when you say the healthcare system has been untrustworthy. And that has happened through history. So as healthcare professionals, we have to understand and acknowledge that and work hard to earn the trust. We can't assume because we have a DO or an MD or a DMD or a PhD on the end of our name that people should automatically trust us. We have to earn that. And that comes from being present and persistent every day and available and empathetic. And so that's who I am. Okay, so then that happened. I'm looking at the time. We were vaccinating, and then Bloomberg News, some of you may have heard of, they put out a report in October of 2021 that said that there were more African Americans vaccinated in the city of Philadelphia than any other city in the United States. And I am taking full credit for that. And so that's how that came about. And then, of course, December 2021 came, and then we got a new variant. And then all the people were wrapped around the building again. And I reached out on Twitter, by the way, and I took a picture and I said, White House, where are you? These people are wrapped around the building. This is a year later. I need support. I need funding. I need to be able to do this. And I literally got a call from the White House. And they said, how can we help you? And after that, we were able to get FEMA here. And with the support, I was able to take what we were doing into the schools because our children were vaccinated at such low rates and they were getting sick. And everyone says, well, kids are younger and they don't get as sick. And that may very well be true, but long COVID is real. COVID fog of the brain, when you just can't remember things the way you used to, is real. And the best way you can prevent that happening in our children is them not getting COVID in the first place. So vaccines are important for our children as well. And so we doubled vaccination rates in Philadelphia public schools. And when I talk to the kids, when I talk to you guys, I said, if you've been vaccinated, tell me why. If you haven't been vaccinated, tell me why not. And if you're interested in college or medicine or anything, write me a note so I can answer it. And people did it anonymously, and I got thousands of notes. Some of the reasons why the kids hadn't gotten vaccinated, some were scared of needles. Some were because their parents or grandparents said, I'm going to take your PS5 away. Some were like, I want to get it, but my grandma won't let me. And then I was able to tell the students that in the city of Philadelphia, if you're 12 and up, you don't need consent to get vaccinated. They were like, what? People were mad at me. I didn't create that rule. That rule has been in the city forever. All I did was empower the students. And so then I talked to a lot of parents who were mad at me, but they allowed their students, their children, to get vaccinated because they wanted summer jobs, because they wanted to do summer programs at Penn and Temple to learn about different career options. They wanted to work at Foot Locker. They wanted to make some money, and you couldn't if you weren't vaccinated. And there were a lot of parents, when they heard their children, and then they knew I was there, said, okay, if you do it, I will let my child get vaccinated. So then that happened. And then I literally got a call from the Department of Health and Human Services to say, are you interested in this position? So I went through all these interviews, and then I was told that President Biden was appointing me to this job for Health and Human Services, which is that seal you see up there in the corner. And I thought about, is this right? Is this the right thing for me right now? I forgot to mention, in the middle of all that, I opened a Center for Health Equity, which is still at 21st and Lehigh, that patients are still coming to. We've been doing monkeypox, we've been doing primary care, pediatrics, everything there. And I'll stop here to say, my goal at your age was to become a doctor. That's all I wanted to. I was like, I'm going to become a doctor. I'm going to give back to my community. I want to take care of my family and maybe do it with more than my parents had. So some things we can have everything we need and most of the things we want. You know, growing up, I had some of the things I needed and really none of the things I wanted, right? But I wanted it to be different. So that was my goal. So 25 years ago, I graduated from medical school. I achieved that goal. And then of course I did residency. But so when this happened in my life, I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know that this is what God had called for me to do. And so right now, I'm honestly just following his path because he has ordered my steps. I had no idea I'd be working for the federal government. No idea I'd be talking to you. No idea Dr. Fauci would be saying, good job, Dr. Stanford. You know, so I'm just following a path. But I can tell you all that I was the unlikely person to succeed. You know, my parents were not making six figures. My dad went to Cheney. My mom went to Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science, which is now Philadelphia University. I have a younger brother who went to Howard. I went to Penn State, as you know, but we were on public assistance. We lived in Section 8 housing. We used, you know, back then there were food stamps. I think now it's an access card, and kids made fun of me. You know, I got my clothes at the thrift store and Goodwill. You know, we were not the ones who were supposed to succeed, but now my brother is the CEO of my businesses. My mom works in my office and she's retired. You know, my dad is being a proud father and my children, I'm trying to raise them the best, you know, with my husband that we can. And I am an advocate and just striving for equitable care for all, especially those who are not treated fairly and equitably. And I believe that that's my mission and my purpose in life. And thank you all for listening. And I think I might have gone over a little bit, but I was trying to give you a continuum from beginning to now. So I'll stop.
You did well. You did well. Thank you so much. I just want to say that, you know, your story is such an inspiration, and our scholars have been gleaning from air to air in the chat. So they're so excited to have you. It's not every day that you know, you could be anywhere right now, anywhere, and we appreciate you saying yes to us here at TeenSHARP, because this is definitely going to make the difference in the lives of our students. So we have questions, just a couple questions. Is that okay for you?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
I thought my twins have a soccer game this afternoon. My son
Okay.
wants to go wandering around. You know, I told them, you just have to give mommy 90 minutes this morning and then I'm all yours.
They're
They're good.
All right, awesome.
They're good.
Awesome. Good. All right. Can we get Moyen? If you could come forward, and I think you have a question.
Hi, hello. My question was,
Oh, be,
what
and
value?
be sure to, Moyen, can you introduce yourself? You're a little also, I'm sorry.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Moon. I'm in 10th grade and I go to Ridley High School in Pennsylvania. And my question was, what values drive your decision making and your work for your leadership?
So great question. So what values? I am someone who tells the truth. I believe that hard work will solve 90% of your problems, and the other 10% you just have to let go. And I really believe that. And that's not to say that there's not injustice and there's not systemic racism and there's not bias in the world, but especially in a field like medicine, there's so many things that are standardized that you're judged against your peers that we all have to take, right? And there will be people who just won't like you, and there's nothing you can do about that. But your work ethic, your coming and being the first one there, the last one to leave, the care you provide, no one can take that away from you, right? And so other values, let's see, integrity matters to me. Doing the right thing, just all the time, doing the right thing. I think it's more clear and less complicated than people make it. Trying to be an example for my children. Just that everything I say, I don't ever have to backtrack and explain away what I said. And so I really think before I speak and make sure it's purposeful. And I mean, everybody has a who they believe or what they believe, but I honestly believe everything is in divine order, and it's grace and faith that have gotten me where I am. So
Thank you, Moyen, for your question. And next we can have Aura, if you can.
Hi, my name is Era Burko. I'm a freshman at Odessa High School. And my question is, when you took on the mission of saving lives of Philadelphians during the height of COVID-19 pandemic, what did you see as a successful outcome of your mission?
I think on the third day, and we were at Enon Tabernacle, and I pulled up and there were like 500 people there. And we weren't even starting until 9, and I got there at 7, and there were so many people. And I knew we were onto something that day. If you ask Pastor Waller, he'll tell you I gave him COVID. He tells everybody that because I brought all the people there. But I think the trust, and at a time when things were so bleak, giving folks a reason to be hopeful and proud, because they knew that there were all these Black doctors, and at the time, but there were all doctors of all different ethnicities. But in the beginning, that there were all these Black doctors in Philly who had decided, we see you, we know you need us, and we're showing up for you. And I think it made people feel seen. It made people feel valued. It made them feel like their life was worth something and it mattered, because we weren't waiting for someone to help them. We weren't waiting for someone else to fix the situation. We were deciding that we were going to fix the situation. And that would be one of the things that I think was most valuable about what we did. Anthony, you're going to have to send me this chat, because I can't read all of them, but I would love, like the transcript. I think you said you were recording it. I would love to read these later.
Okay, awesome. We'll do. And pretty much one of our last questions is Sabra. You go introduce yourself, Sabra.
Hello, welcome to TeenSHARP 2022. My name is Sabra Rivera from Odyssey Charter School in Wilmington, Delaware. And my question is, why is it that you did not think it impossible to make it in Philadelphia in the healthcare field while many healthcare professionals gave up? And my other question is, how long did it take for you to become a pediatric surgeon?
So, wow. I think to your first question, I just saw myself in the faces of all the people who were sick. And I saw my parents and my grandparents and my aunts and my cousins. Like, it felt like it was my family out there that was getting sick and dying. So I identified and I got it. Like, I understood what it feels like to be at work all day. And at the time you're available to get a test, everything is closed. Like, I got that. I mean, we had funeral directors that were burying people all day long with COVID, that if they showed up at one of the mainstream hospitals without a script, they would turn him away. Like, how do you turn away a 70-year-old man that's been burying people with COVID because he doesn't have a prescription? Like, where's the humanity in that? Where's the empathy in that? And I think that what made me, while other people turned away, is because I felt like this was my family, that these were my people, and that I was tired of 25 years ago when everyone said, you know, Black folks, Latino folks, you know, they have poorer health outcomes. Like, it was just an accepted reality. And I just felt like for longer than you guys have been living, people have been saying this. And I wanted to prove that that wasn't true. And that's why. So in pediatric surgery, well, if you add it all up after high school, 18 years. But I don't want you to think about people. I said that to a patient once, and they said, did you have to repeat a grade? Why did it take you so long? And I was like, no, that's just how long it takes. But it's not as if you stop living while you're doing that, right? So you graduate from high school, you go to college, that's 4 years. You go to medical school, that's 4 years, but I spent an extra year doing research, so that was 5 years. You do general surgery, that's 5 years. And then for pediatric surgery, which is more subspecialized, you do 2 years of research and 2 years of fellowship. So it ends up being 9 years after high school. After 18 years after high school, yes, 18 years after high school, 9 years after medical school. It's okay, I promise you. Because in that year, I had friends that got married, friends that got pregnant, friends that got divorced, friends that had kids. And when I finished in my 30s, I was done and I didn't feel like I missed anything. Really.
That's great. So, you know, I want to. So just before is there a scholar? Or...
I see Noah has his hand up.
Okay. I just want to make sure. Oh, well, let's take Noah's question, but I wanted to make sure before we go. But if there's a scholar or someone that they had a burning question or comment that they had to get out, or they would lose sleep if they didn't get it out. So that's all. But let's go with Noah, since we Noah.
Didn't hear you.
Hi, my name is Noah Wilson-Kigeni. I'm an 11th grader, and I go to York Academy Regional Charter School at York County, Pennsylvania. And I found it really interesting how, even though through the trials and the errors of, you trying to get people trying to believe and your decisions and your ideas that you have for your community. And I wanted to ask, how do you trust yourself in your ideas and your decisions, even though there might be people who try to, really try to unmotivate you and try get you off the path of your ideas and stuff?
Mm-hmm. That's an excellent question, Noah. So, you heard, or in the video when I had the sheet around my neck and the stethoscope, like I used to stand in the mirror, honestly, and say, "Hi, I'm Dr. Stanford." And I know everybody in my family thought I was crazy. Like, why is she talking to herself in the mirror? But I had to see myself doing it. I used to sign, like I can find my college notebooks where I'm writing A.La Stanford, MD, like over and over and over and over. So I don't want to say it's something that you're born with. I mean, maybe some people are just born confident. But I think it was something that was built for me, like just when I knew I studied hard and I got the grade, that built my confidence, when, and I just prayed, right? I just felt like there were so many things that happened in my life that God did not spare my life for me not to be able to go after something that he had put before me. That's honestly what I believed. And I think that sense of self, that what you're capable of doing, regardless of what other people say. I can tell you, my counselors told me to go to community college. They told me I was aiming too high, all sorts of stuff, that I didn't have the right family to become a doctor, but what you're capable of doing better than anyone. And you got to be honest with yourself, like I'm not I don't have a legal mind per se, but a scientific mind, absolutely all day, and I just, that's how my faith, and then it helps to have one other person. You don't need to have a whole army, but one other person that's in your corner, no matter what, that's got your back. It helps to have that. And you surround yourself with people who are about you and lifting you up, not tearing you down, right? Because you tend to emulate the characteristics of the people around you. So that's what I would say.
Thank you.
Well, Doc, I wish we had more time, but if I want to tell you this
Yana person, if she doesn't speak, I keep looking at her face. Is your Zoom gonna cut off?
Yeah. If you could just do it in 10 seconds and we're gonna move, all right?
Okay.
Hi, my name is Yana Kumar. I'm a 12th grader at Appoquinimink High School. And my question is, while speaking with city and state officials, were there moments where you were shocked with things that city and state officials were telling you?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. They were like, well, who does she think she is? Well, and the Inquirer was saying, this Dr. Stanford, she's testing all the Black people. And the health commissioner said, it's not like she's the only person testing Black people. So why are we, making it a big deal? I mean, in print, in the newspaper, you can Google this stuff. Absolutely. And there were so many assumptions of what I didn't have, that I didn't have the infrastructure, that it wouldn't be longevity. I even got, you're a pretty face. You're here today, gone tomorrow. Oh yeah, all of that. But again, back to Noah, that's why you need to know who you are now. 10th graders, 9th graders, 11th graders, 12th graders. Because when you have a whole life of people telling you what you can't do, and you have those hard nights where you're crying yourself to sleep, or tough days where you're writing in your journal and you don't know how you can go on, that resilience that you are getting now, when you're 3 times your current age, it's going to be like, I done already seen this, done that. I know what I need to do, and it's nothing that can fit. I mean, you'll be like, damn, did he say that? And you just keep it moving, right?
Thank you.
You're welcome, baby.
All right, Dr. Stanford, I just want to say thank you so much for your time again. We love you. We appreciate you.